developed so much that it can reimagine human interaction. That's the topic of the next discussion. So I would like your biggest applause for Mrs. Victoria Weller, Operation in ElevenLabs, Mr. Dimitris Nikolaou, co-founder at Wondercraft, and Mr. Alex Alexakis, investor at Marathon VC. A big applause, everybody.
I'm Alex, and this is my AI voice. I'm a partner at Marathon, backing ambitious tech founders at the early stage, and also write Startup Pirate, your go-to destination to learn all about Greek startups. I'm super excited to be on stage with Dimi and Victoria to chat about the AI voice revolution.
Good, not good. AI needs more data points of heavy Greek accent. Okay, let's dive right in. ElevenLabs has been a pioneer in this wave of AI voice generation. So I'd love to start with Victoria to ask her to share a little bit more about ElevenLabs' platform and the capabilities it enables today.
For sure. I feel very lucky to be part of the journey of ElevenLabs. ElevenLabs is set out on a mission to make content universally accessible in any voice, language, and sound. And at the very core of our technology is what you just heard, is text-to-speech. And that is taking written words and turning them into audio, and doing this in a way with contextual awareness. So the model, the AI model, understands what the sentence means and thereby infuses the audio with the emotion and the intonation so that the output is indistinguishable from human speech. That is what we started with. We have since then expanded our capabilities within the AI audio realm. We have sound effects where you can type in the sound effects that you want to produce. We have background noise removers, we have the reverse of speech to text, and dubbing solutions and many more capabilities within the audio realm, and really cover whatever someone wants to produce with AI audio.
Okay. And Dimitri, I know ElevenLabs has been a big inspiration for you to start Wondercraft in the early days. So, first of all, can you share what Wondercraft is and the use cases that you guys are going after?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, you're right. ElevenLabs was a big inspiration. There are some events that are binary in terms of enabling new businesses. The internet enabling Amazon to sell online. Very recently, LLMs or GPT enabling many businesses to be built. And for us, that binary event, something that flipped the switch, was the quality of the foundational model of the voices of ElevenLabs. And basically, we were close with the ElevenLabs founding team, and I've always had a very big appreciation or obsession with podcasts. And I even tried to have a podcast in my past, but it's quite challenging for anyone that's tried to have a podcast. It's quite challenging to get going, figuring out what microphones to buy, record and edit. So when we realized the quality of the ElevenLabs voices, we recognized that for the first time, it's possible to create content without having to record. So we decided to build this application layer where we make it very easy to create audio content. First starting with podcasts, but we've expanded since to audio ads and meditations, audiobooks, and a lot more. And that's what we're doing today. Basically have started with using the ElevenLabs foundational model, but since then, there's been a lot of interest and competition in the space, and now it's just an application layer where there's quite a few voice models that we're using, and I think we're innovating on top of that foundational model layer.
And Victoria, you recently introduced conversational AI agents, and there's a lot of hype around it. So can you share what this technology is about and the capabilities it enables?
I would say the hype is warranted. Conversational AI combines that expressive language that you just showed and the text-to-speech that I was explaining previously with intelligence behind it. And that allows you to have real-time conversations and changes the way that you engage. You don't have static content interaction anymore, but you can really have a back and forth and an engagement with AI intelligence. And so you would be speaking to a character, and they would be speaking back in real time. And that works by having that expressive ElevenLabs text-to-speech layer on top of mostly an LLM that you can train on specific information as well. One example, something that I did internally at ElevenLabs recently, is train it on our internal company wiki. We have one repository of company-wide information, and most of the operational questions that land in my inbox are answered on the wiki. And so instead of always saying, have you checked the wiki, or here's the link to the wiki, I trained our conversational AI on all the content in the wiki. And now our employees can simply engage with I called it the wiki, and ask it, what is our out-of-office policy, and get a real-time response of exactly the question that they're asking. And so that kind of support is one example of what you can do with conversational AI. You can also use it as a tutor or a language trainer, and really just change the way you engage with content.
Okay. And as a follow-up, it would be interesting to hear your take on any limitations of this technology nowadays, because it's fairly new. And what are the future developments that you're most excited about, perhaps?
I am really excited about advancing conversational AI in a way that the intelligence behind it can cover all grounds. The wiki is an expert on the company wiki, but what if I want to shift gears and ask it something about the evolution of space? It would be great to have like one intelligence powering conversational AI, and at the moment it's difficult to really have that shift of gears and the entire knowledge base behind it. Conversational AI has that expressive text-to-speech layer, and so any limitations that come with that would be inherent as part of it as well. And then the intelligence LLM layer behind it. And an additional difficulty or limitation here, something that we're always trying to improve on, is the resulting delay. So you want it to be real-time and really reactive, and so the latency is something that will continuously improve over time and make the engagement even more natural and rewarding.
Right. And Dimitri, you've been building a startup in a space where there's too much going on, incumbents building competing products, new startups raising tons of money. So can you share how you keep yourself and your team focused?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alex. So I think the caveat for us is that we're building on the application layer, right? So it's actually quite different to other companies, ElevenLabs being an example where there's a lot of money being spent on the foundational models, and you have to burn that capital to build better and better models. For us, the interesting thing is that us being an application layer, we're playing in a game where the foundations under us are continuously changing. ElevenLabs started, they had a fantastic voice model, and then we started building using that voice model, and then there's so much more competition going on that some of them are potentially even better than ElevenLabs, or ElevenLabs is better at some things. Vicky is nodding there. No. Some of them might be doing different things compared to ElevenLabs. So we have to be continuously, in the US they have this expression where it's like we have to be, for ice hockey, you have to be skating where the puck is going rather than where the puck is currently at. And that's something that's super important for us. But apart from that, I will agree with you, there's just so much going on. It's very important both for everyone in the founding team, both on the business side, but also the technical side, to understand everything that is being released so that you can plan ahead. So that would be, I'd say, the second thing, like having an ear on the ground so that you know what's going on. And maybe a third thing is being have very strong opinions about what you're going to build, but have them very loosely held, because there's just so much that's going to change, even within one quarter. So even if you have like quarterly plans, you should be willing and open to throw everything away if there's like a monumental shift. And there has been, like basically every quarter, there has been a monumental shift. Like we're releasing some cool stuff in 10 days because of things that got released a month ago. We couldn't have planned that. So you have to be playing in a space where it's hard to plan ahead, but at the same time, be ready to execute. So like I'm very happy to have this team that has this mentality right now.
I think you have an interesting story about Spotify launching competing product and turned, from a threat to an opportunity.
Yeah.
Can you share?
Yeah,
more?
absolutely. So we went to YC early in the company, and the one very good quote from Paul Graham was that startups don't die because of competition, they die because founders run out of energy. And this is something that has become abundantly clear to us as we've been building the product. There's actually two stories with Spotify launching something that we were about to launch, and in the end didn't bother us. The second one was even 10 days ago. As I said before, one of the use cases within Wondercraft is creating ads for audio, including Spotify. For anyone that has the free version of Spotify, you know that there's a ton of ads there. It's very hard to create those ads. That's what Wondercraft does very well. And Spotify very recently announced that they will be creating a way to create ads using AI. So basically a competing product. But what we're seeing again and again, Spotify is one, but there's other examples as well, is that when these big players push towards one direction, all that happens, Notebook.LM is another one, by the way, with AI podcasts, all that happens is that they popularize the use case, and we are the ones that are actively pushing to grab that market share, that are going to grab that share in the end, because these players don't care about about getting like advertisers. They have like other bigger fish. So Spotify making a push for generative AI audio ads, amazing for us. Google making a push for AI podcasts with Notebook.LM, amazing for us. And this has been happening again and again. So basically, a big learning for us is that competition is probably preferable, definitely not a bad thing.
Okay.
It's like validation in the idea.
Yeah, validation in the idea. Like if the big ones are doing it, and also like for very concrete reasons, like AI podcasts now, if you search for AI podcasts, many people search for AI podcasts because of Notebook.LM, and then they land to us, right? So it's very concrete ways in which this is benefiting us.
Right. And I want to switch gears now. And you both left big tech, Palantir specifically, to build the startup or join an early stage startup. So perhaps also for our audience, like what would you advise recent grads that coming out of uni and are deciding between startups or corporate?
You want to go?
I can go first. For me personally, and everyone has a different journey, of course, but it was very valuable to be in big tech as well. Especially Palantir isn't a very unagile big tech. It was still being surrounded by really intelligent people, being able to go where the highest impact is, and learning things there was super valuable in the sense that I could also see how do larger companies operate, what is an incident response framework that works with thousands of customers, and I can use those learnings and apply them when building up ElevenLabs. For me, a big piece was to leave Palantir was that I wanted to, rather than operationalize and solve problems within an existing machine, go out and build that machine. So I think the switch from going from big tech to startup is a really rewarding one where you can speed up your velocity and see a company at a different scale and level and be the one making the cogs of the machine rather than being a cog in the machine.
You can tell he speaks like a COO, right? Like my perspective is completely different. I will agree with Vicky that it was extremely valuable to be at big tech. And to touch on your point, Alex, what I would suggest for fresh grads, if you have the opportunity, definitely do go and work for a big tech company. Concretely, what was very beneficial for me, there were two things. Potentially, this is something that is accentuated even more at Palantir than the way that it operates, but I think it is big tech that is that way. We were placed basically in big tech. You can be placed in like separate pods within the organization, and you can be given a lot of accountability and ownership. So basically, within Palantir, we had the opportunity to run mini startups of our own with no risk, or at least minimal risk compared to running your own startup, and see how things will progress. As an example, we were given the opportunity with a couple of friends, some of them are in the audience today, to come to the Greek government and try to establish a partnership here. And we're basically running it as a startup. So that was the one big thing, that you get that exposure of trying to build something and sell, which is what you do at startups, and you do that risk-free. The second thing is just incredible talent within Palantir, within big tech generally, that will allow you to find your co-founders. A lot of you, I can only imagine, are here to meet co-founders. Big tech is another way to do that. Working there for a few years, you become friends with people that share the dreams that you have, and it's a very natural, very organic way to proceed to the next step and start your own company. So I will agree with Vicky that working at big tech was extremely beneficial. Definitely would recommend that to fresh grads. My perspective of why it was valuable is a little bit different, but I would definitely think that that's the best thing. And one more thing, I would highly recommend to fresh grads, after working at big tech, one thing that I think I would have rather done, rather than starting directly a startup, is if you can work as a chief of staff or a founder associate for a startup, especially for a high-performing one that's doing really well. Of course, it's not easy to land such a job, but it's basically extremely beneficial, again, for your future as a founder, because believe me, at least for me, it was the case that I genuinely knew nothing. I knew nothing about how to grow a company. I knew nothing about fundraising, nothing about operations. Having that exposure, being the number 2 to a founder, doing all of the dirty jobs so that you can learn everything risk-free, I believe would have been very beneficial for me. I wish I would have left a year earlier from Palantir and do that. But yeah, I would definitely recommend that path for future founders.
Are you hiring for such a role?
Actually, I just hired someone, but there's always talent, so feel free to reach out. I'll plug my email in the end.
And that's to your point of the network that you build. When you're in big tech, it feels more like building friendships, but afterwards you realize that those were really incredible and specially talented people. And we at ElevenLabs hire a lot from Palantir, just from the friends, but in fact network that we built at big tech.
What's specific with Palantir? There's too much people coming out and building their own stuff.
I think it's what I mentioned before. There's two things. One, they train you in that entrepreneurial mindset. So you will be given the accountability and ownership. So you will basically be close to founding your own startup before you go on the leap to do it. But there's also a second thing. Arguably, Palantir does hire entrepreneurial-minded individuals. So it's kind of a precursor to joining Palantir rather than something that happens within Palantir, that people will end up going to start something because Palantir hired those people just one stage before they did so. Do you agree?
I think those are the biggest two. If I would have to add one, it's also the exposure to different industries. As the nature of Palantir, many companies and many different industries can use the product. And so working there, you can see what it is like to work in an oil company or somewhere else. And so you can almost use that as a testing ground of seeing where are big problems that can be solved by founding your own company and diving in there.
Makes sense. And doing some prep work, I realized you recently took job titles out of the company. So it's everyone like operations or marketing. So I'm curious, how is it working so far? And what's the rationale also behind it?
The rationale behind removing job titles at ElevenLabs was to encourage people to take more ownership and remove that artificial hierarchical layer. So we don't have a head of growth or a VP of revenue. We just have someone that looks after revenue and people that look after growth. It's not quite as chaotic as that might sound. We still have reporting lines, so you have a direct manager, we have someone that leads a team, and there is an org structure, but there's not that sense of being driven to get to that very artificial title layer. It's going well. It definitely requires compensatory work in the sense that a lot of recognition is also felt if you progress from junior to senior, and we need to compensate for that by coupling our success a lot to responsibility. So saying that you were leading a work stream and now you're looking after 2 work streams, that is our form of a promotion rather than saying you're now senior associate.
Okay. And I believe we're running out of time. So before we wrap up, what would be your advice for people, try to get into voice AI? Where should they start from?
You start this one.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I will start by saying where you should not go. You should not build a competitor to Wondercraft. No, I'm joking. You should not probably build a competitor to ElevenLabs, meaning it's probably quite challenging to build a foundational model right now. There's a lot of capital that's required to get the models to perform very well. I think that the ground has been kind of solidified, ElevenLabs being one player, but there's 3 or 4 others. Cartesia is another one, and like the big tech is now also entering with OpenAI and Google. So building a foundational model would probably not be it. Something, though, that I would definitely recommend is going on what Vicky was suggesting before. The conversational AI piece is becoming more and more prominent. Basically, you can start building voice agents for very niche industries, right? So think about calling dental practices or doctor offices here in Greece, for example, and being able to have a proper interaction with an AI to book an appointment or to shift an appointment or anything else. I do really believe in building conversational AI in different niches. And in the US, they're doing niches right now in like different industries, but like starting from Greece alone can probably be a big enough market. Like there's quite a few medical practices that you can apply this to. So I would say that's probably a very good one.
Vic?
I can make mine very short. I would say come join ElevenLabs.
All right. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.